Tonight, Sturgeon stands down. The former First Minister says she won't seek election to the Scottish Parliament next year, and she's starting the next chapter in her life.
This is the time for me to look forward and to allow those in the next generation that I've tried to encourage along the way to come up and carry on the work.
The former First Minister has been speaking to STV News. Also making the headlines, the housing emergency. An Edinburgh mum who's been living in temporary accommodation with her kids for 5 years says it's mental torture. In sport, as Jose Mourinho's Fenerbahce arrive in Glasgow, Barry Ferguson says he wants Ibrox rocking tomorrow night. And under the sea, why some new guide dogs are getting some special training at a sea life centre. I'm John Mackay. This is the STV News at 6. Good evening. Nicola Sturgeon says she's stepping down as an MSP next year and won't stand for re-election in Glasgow South Side. Ms Sturgeon has been at Holyrood since 1999, when the Scottish Parliament was founded. She was First Minister for longer than anyone else. She says the time is right to open a new chapter in her life, after being embroiled in a police inquiry into SNP finances and her separation from her husband. She's been speaking to her political editor, Colin Mackay.
It's been a long shift. Nicola Sturgeon got involved in politics as a teenager in the 1980s. She's been an MSP since the start of devolution in 1999, a minister from 2007 and the longest serving First Minister.
If it was possible to go back in time and speak to, the very shy, very awkward, quite geeky 16-year-old that joined the SNP on Kay Ulrich's doorstep and told her everything that has happened over the years since, that I would become a member of a Scottish Parliament, back then it didn't even exist, that I would be a minister in an SNP government, that I would be First Minister of Scotland, that I would help lead an independence referendum campaign. I mean, frankly, she would have thought she was hallucinating. So it's impossible for me to really sum up everything that has been so special about the last few decades of my life, but this is the time for me to look forward and to allow those in the next generation that I've tried to encourage along the way to come up and carry on the work.
You said judge me on closing the attainment gap. Figures last week suggest that you haven't closed it. Certainly not as much as you would have hoped for to be judged on.
Absolutely. Look, I'm at a stage in my life and career where I will openly reflect on the things that I wish I'd done more of or done better, and certainly the attainment gap in education is one of them. But Scottish education is not what many of our opponents claim it to be. Scotland is full of well-educated, informed, curious young people going on to do brilliant things in life. There are more people from the kind of background I came from now going to university, and many of the policies that I introduced while First Minister, I've mentioned two of them, the Scottish Child Payment, expanded early years education. Over time, these will have a massive impact on the attainment of young people, particularly those from poorer backgrounds.
Nicola Sturgeon became First Minister just after the independence referendum and stood down 2 years ago. But she's still the most talked about figure in Scottish politics. Just this afternoon, MSPs debated gender reform, probably the most acrimonious issue of her leadership.
What I regret about this issue, what I regret about much of political discourse right now, and I take my share of responsibility for it, is the inability to debate things civilly and respectfully. And I think we'll reach a point in time, I don't know whether it will be 5, 10 years or longer, when collectively we look back at the vilification of trans people that's happening right now and be quite ashamed of that.
Nicola Sturgeon says this closes the book on this political chapter of her life. Next, she has a book of her own due out in August and a turn at the Glasgow Comedy Festival with her famous author pal Val McDermid.
The show is Val and I. Val's one of my best friends, talking about books. We share a love of books. It's something we're both passionate about bringing to a wider audience. I'm slightly terrified that it is part of the Glasgow Comedy Festival. You've interviewed me many times. I'm not sure you would be somebody that talks about my natural humour, but that's maybe one of the things I'm going to change in the future.
So maybe a bit of a laugh to come, and she promises her book will be candid. But whatever she does next, this is far from the last you'll see of Nicola Sturgeon.
So, Colin, what has the reaction been to Nicola Sturgeon's announcement?
Well, there's been no surprise at all. A lot of MSPs are standing down at next year's Scottish Parliament election. It was long expected that she would be among them. In fact, there's been times over the last couple of years where there's been speculation that she might go early, she might cause a by-election. But in terms of reaction, there are those who love Nicola Sturgeon, there are many others who loathe Nicola Sturgeon. The Tories today talked of a legacy of deep divisions and described her record as First Minister as a failure. First Minister John Swinney obviously took the opposite view.
Through the expansion of early learning and childcare that we've seen under her time as First Minister, and also the introduction of groundbreaking reforms such as the Scottish Child Payment, which are helping to keep thousands of children out of poverty as we speak in Scotland today, are some of the most important contributions she has made to enhancing the lives of individuals in our country.
And in her Glasgow South Side constituency, it was a mixed bag.
She's a hard-working lady. She should not step down.
It's time for her just to enjoy the rest of her life, really. She was marvellous during the pandemic, gave us all the detailed work about what was happening, all the news updates and all that. That was great. But then everything's overshadowed all that.
I don't think she's particularly done anything well for the country since she's been in power. I think she puts a lot of unpopular things at the top of her radar.
Now, Nicola Sturgeon still has a year to serve as their MSP. She'll also be waiting to see what happens next with Operation Branchform. She's been arrested, released without charge, and has maintained all along that she's done nothing wrong. She'll also be hitting the book festival circuit, as I mentioned in my report earlier. She's got a book coming out of her own in August. And while she's leaving Parliament, she says she's not giving up campaigning for independence, which she says she thinks will come before she reaches her dotage.
Colin at the Scottish Parliament, thank you. An Edinburgh mum who's been living in temporary accommodation with her kids for 5 years says her situation is mental torture. Zoe Ross and her 5 children were put into a 3-bedroom temporary flat in 2020 after they became homeless. But 5 years on, they say they've yet to be offered a suitable permanent home. Vanessa Kennedy reports.
Every week, Zoe logs onto this website to search for a permanent home, but she says she's starting to give up hope.
It's like a race to get a house. You log in on the website on a Sunday and sometimes there's not even a 3-bedroom and there's not even a 4-bedroom.
She and her family, including 3 sons and 2 daughters, were placed in this temporary accommodation 5 years ago by the council after falling into rent arrears days before the UK went to COVID lockdown. But what was meant to be a short-term solution has become their reality. STV News spoke to Zoe when she'd already been living here for 3 years. 2 years on, she's in the same situation.
It's mental torture. You know, like the kids are, when we moved in here, one of my kids was like 11 and now he's 16. It's been difficult in here, like due to the space. Obviously I am grateful for a roof over our heads, like I couldn't say that any clearer. But it's not adaptable for what we need it to be.
Zoe says despite waiting for so many years, she doesn't feel her situation is a priority and that there's simply not enough space for her 5 children. It comes after Shelter Scotland recently published a new report showing the impact unsuitable temporary housing has on children.
We've got 10,360 kids who are stuck in temporary accommodation that this research shows isn't just unsuitable, it's quite often unsafe. And we know from the latest statistics that 4,085 times households were placed in temporary accommodation that was deemed by law to be unsuitable. There just aren't enough suitable homes to move families into. In particular, there's a shortage of larger properties.
The Scottish Government says it's taking action to reduce the number of families living in temporary accommodation, including a £200 million boost to the affordable housing programme in its budget for next year. Edinburgh Council declined to provide a comment on Zoe's situation, but said they'd provided her with bidding advice and support several times. But 5 years on, Zoe says she's still been unable to secure a property that meets her family's needs, and she fears there's no end in sight. Vanessa Kennedy, STV News, Edinburgh.
The Prime Minister is defending plans to overhaul the welfare system amid reports billions of pounds could be cut from support for the disabled. Keir Starmer says the current system is indefensible and failing to support people back into work. Our Westminster correspondent Paris Goutsianis joins us. So Paris, what do you know about these plans?
Well, the full detail isn't known yet. That's coming in the next week or so. But we do know this could amount to £6 billion of cuts, mainly aimed at disability benefits. Now, many of those payments are devolved. They're controlled by the Scottish Government. But cuts of this scale could seriously impact the amount of money Scotland gets through the Barnett formula. The UK Government says this is essential because the number of people signed off work through long-term illness and disability is rising, and so is the bill to the taxpayers. But at PMQs, the Prime Minister was on the defensive.
I come from a family that dealt with disability through my mother and brother over many years, so I do understand the concerns that have been raised by him. But we inherited a system which is broken, it is indefensible economically and morally, and we must and we will reform it. We will have clear principles, Mr. Speaker. We will protect those who need protecting. We will also support those who can work back to work. But Labour is the party of work. We are also the party of equality and fairness.
And Paris, how much of a fight does the Prime Minister have on his hands?
Well, Downing Street is very nervous about the potential scale of the opposition to this. That's why the Prime Minister was building a case before Labour rebels can get organised, even using his own family's story. There are 5 ultra-loyal Scottish Labour MPs who are giving their backing. So is Anas Sarwar, the Scottish Labour leader. All Labour MPs have been invited to Downing Street as part of the Charm Offensive. But after picking fights with pensioners, with farmers, with businesses, the government's gearing up for another fight.
Paris at Westminster, thank you. It's emerged that the captain of the container ship which sailed from Grangemouth and crashed into a tanker carrying aviation fuel for the US military in the North Sea was Russian. He was arrested on suspicion of gross negligence manslaughter yesterday. Well, our reporter Matt Price joins us from Louth on the Lincolnshire coast. Matt, can you give us an update on the situation there?
Well, this story is constantly moving. The latest we have for you this evening, some good news perhaps. The Coast Guard have told us there has been no further contamination into the water apart from what happened when the collision initially took place. Now, the Stena Immaculate, that remains anchored off the coast of the North Sea, while the Solong, which was last seen here on the Lincolnshire coast, as you rightly say, is drifting south, but is being supported by a tug. Now, this afternoon, we've seen new pictures emerging, which I think we have for you on STV this evening, of the moment the two ships collided. We've also heard from eyewitnesses and those who saw those flames licking high and the smoke billowing into the sky. But the question's now, what happens next? Well, I think in the long term, the focus is on the investigation. How did this crash initially happen? In the short and medium term, I think it's all about the salvage operation and how those works are still going on. Subject to weather conditions, a small team of experts will be boarding the Stena, and if safe, they'll inspect the engine room and the bridge. And they'll also be looking at how, if they can, they'll get some of the cargo back to the owners. I think we need to remember that this is a long-running investigation. This is going to take some time before all of this happens. Safety is the priority, and I think we'll be hearing a lot more about this story in the days and weeks to come.
Indeed. Matt in Lincolnshire, thank you. 2 men have been charged after a woman was allegedly sexually assaulted in Clydebank. The incident happened in a car park beside the Crescent in Dalmuir on Saturday evening. The two men, aged 35 and 37, appeared at Dumbarton Sheriff Court today. Detective Inspector Craig Bates said additional patrols have been carried out in the area. A man has been arrested in connection with damage to Donald Trump's Ayrshire golf course. Turnberry near Girvan was targeted by vandals in the early hours of Saturday morning. Red paint was daubed over the clubhouse while the greens were dug up and marker flags pulled down early on Saturday morning. A hero of the 2007 Glasgow airport attack has died, aged 59, with a rare cancer. Stephen Clarkson was picking up his family when two suicide bombers drove a jeep packed with petrol and gas canisters into the terminal. He fought off one of the bombers as he tried to open the car's boot. For almost a decade, the former Tusk nightclub in the south side of Glasgow has fallen into a state of disrepair, but a team of locals now have plans to save the former hotspot. Our reporter Tara Fitzpatrick joined them for a tour of the dilapidated A-listed landmark.
So how does it feel to be walking around this space?
A little bit surreal. It's quiet, eerily quiet, and you can see from the graphic we've got here, we're looking at a piece of history.
Beneath the crumbling plaster lies the original century-old pillars and foundations of this Glasgow-listed building. It originally opened as a cinema in 1922 and has since known life as a snooker and bingo hall, and more recently as Tusk nightclub in the early 2000s. Part of the dilapidated building then had a new lease of life as the Waverley Tea Rooms, but when doors completely shut in 2017, the site fell into disrepair.
It's clear to me that the building is strong. It's preserved itself despite negligence.
This Glasgow businessman is on a mission to revive the building to its glory days. He dreams of a cinema, cafe and community space for locals, but the road to get there won't be easy.
At a glance, the remnants of the popular Tusk nightclub, which closed its doors in 2009, are still very much visible. But just take a few steps and the scale of the disrepair to this listed building becomes clear.
That is the beautiful entrance there.
Dry rot, damp and water ingress are among the largest structural problems at hand, and Sam believes the renovation could cost around £5 million.
I like to work to worst case scenarios, and as a team we are looking at this as a challenge, and restoration of the building, sensitive to what it was, is important. At this stage, I would still like to get the specialists in to look at particularly the basement, which a lot of water has been lying, and there was visible dry rot, which concerned me, but would like to get the specialists in before I make a conclusion on that.
Locals backing Sam's vision have formed a steering group to support the building's revival.
It's so important for a community to have a space like this, and I think it's actually something at the moment that's lacking. The south side of Glasgow is such a vibrant area, and it really, I think, just needs somewhere to provide for people to provide like a space that they can come together, make new friends, maybe see some films.
The funding for this project is still to be secured, but hope remains high that the lights will once again be on at this iconic building. Tara Fitzpatrick, STV News, Glasgow.
Wait till you get a slice of this. Naples, New York, Stockbridge. A Scottish pizza shop has been named amongst the 19 best pizzerias in the world. Time Out magazine ranked Civerino's, which has stores in Edinburgh and Glasgow, as the 13th best globally. They say they're full of gratitude and grated mozzarella.
We're East Coast American kind of style pizza with an Italian heritage vibe. So when we places like Scars, like in New York, like that's, you know, we love that place. So to be ranked on the same list as them is incredible.
I love the atmosphere, and it's just got amazing yummy food.
And what's your favourite pizza?
Definitely the margarita New York style.
I like that there's nowhere else sort of around here that does pizza like this, and I also think it's very similar to what I've had when I've been in Italy and all things like that.
Well, they're really friendly staff, never mind the food being fantastic. The dough is really crispy and soft on the inside.
Amazing atmosphere, great people, and the pizza is spot on.
Could have done with more pizza shots there. Anyway, the special one is in town. No, not him, but Jose Mourinho. He's just here to tell us all about it.
Your window to sport. C.R. Smith sponsors STV Sport.
We all know who's the unpopular one, don't we, John? Good evening. Barry Ferguson is challenging his players to light the fire in the stands and get Ibrox rocking tomorrow night as Rangers aim to qualify to the quarter-finals of the Europa League. Ferguson's side hold a 3-1 advantage over Fenerbahce from last week's first leg, and he expects Jose Mourinho's team to come at them. Ronnie Charters reports.
One result away from the quarter-finals of the Europa League. But to do so, Barry Ferguson says he needs the power of the Rangers supporters to help get past Fenerbahce. Ibrox, a fortress on European nights in recent years, and the head coach is wanting more tomorrow night.
See if you get this place rocking. It's a proper place to play football. We need to light that fire in the stands. That's what we need to start doing. And the guys are well aware of that. But see, as a footballer, as a manager, I can't wait. You've got to be excited about this. You've got to embrace the challenge that's in front of us. And my group of players are ready for that.
Ferguson's men hold a 2-goal advantage into tomorrow night, and he's expecting Jose Mourinho's side, who arrived in Glasgow this afternoon, to attack from the off.
We'll go on and we'll brace the challenge tomorrow night because, as I said, it's going to be a different game in my opinion. But we need to stand tall and we need to go head to head with Fenerbahce because they'll come and they'll go for us. So we need to be strong in the mind. But I certainly believe, that my group of players over the last 3 days certainly know what's going to come at them. So we're prepared for it.
Connor, it was almost the perfect team performance in Istanbul last week. Do you feel it's going to take at least the same, if not better, tomorrow night to guarantee progress?
Yeah, definitely. As I say, it was a good performance, but the game's done now. We're on to the second leg now, and we know it's not done, as I've said. So yeah, we need to be better than what we were over there. We expect Fenerbahce to come over, and they're a top side, so we respect them, and we've got to make sure that we're on the ball tomorrow.
Ferguson has a couple of injury doubts, which will be assessed tomorrow morning before the match. Ronnie Charters, STV Sport.
Well, Jose Mourinho says Rangers aren't a better team than Fenerbahce. The Turkish side are training at Ibrox right now. After the first leg, Mourinho said his team was very poor in every position and was glad the margin of defeat wasn't bigger. He spoke to the media a short time ago.
I think Rangers is not a better team than us. And I think we have a chance of qualifying. It's not hurted, or it's not I want revenge, or we have to go there and to show we are better. It's nothing about that. It's just the fact that I honestly think we are better. Of course, we have to try not to repeat the mistakes, because the mistakes against a team that played like Rangers did, very defensive, low block, very closed, waiting for the mistake, counter-attack. Against a team that plays like this, you cannot make mistakes in possession like we did.
Your window to sport. C.R. Smith sponsors STV Sport.
And that, folks, is all your sport tonight. Now, have a guess where's tomorrow's sports coming from.
We're watching, you'll surprise us, I'm sure. Cheers. Sean has the weather.
An icy start to the day will give way to a series of oohs and ahs. TUI sponsors STV Weather.
Very good evening to you. Another day with a northerly and pretty good day for us. Again, northerly's good direction for us. We avoid most of the showers today. They've been mainly in northern and eastern parts. A lot of dry weather with sunshine for us. It does mean tonight we get the driest, clearest weather and the lowest temperatures as well. Widespread frost to come with temperatures even in the towns down to about freezing tonight. But one of the coldest areas to be tonight will be South and East Ayrshire and also South Lanarkshire. Those temperatures locally, as you can see, the likes of Drumulbin and Cumnock down to lows of -3. So a cold, frosty start to tomorrow in some spots, especially further south. So tomorrow again, it's another fine and sunny day. We've still got that northerly. A little bit more cloud bubbling up into the afternoon, but plenty of dry and bright weather tomorrow. May just see a weak weather front affecting the very far west tomorrow with a few showers and a wee bit more cloud. For the likes of Col and Tiree, Mull, we could see a few showers, Jura and Isla, but hopefully fairly isolated. I say for most of us, it is just another dry, bright day. Temperatures up to about 7 or 8 degrees. Now the wind changes subtly to a northeasterly on Friday, which means there'll be lots of showers in the east of the country, but here, the further west we come, driest and brightest. Unfortunately, that northeasterly goes to more of a northwesterly on Saturday, which means the air's coming in, of course, then from the west. So we get a bit more cloud on Saturday. Small risk of a few light showers. Best of the brighter weather in the east and highs of 9 degrees. Bye-bye.
TUI sponsors STV Weather.
And finally, a whole new world for guide dog puppies, one full of unusual sights, sounds and, in this case, sea creatures. 4 brave pups spent the day learning to stay focused at the Sea Life Aquarium in Loch Lomond, as Caitlin Hutchison reports.
It's a strange underwater world, but Colin's experienced guide dog Jumble is taking it in her stride. This dark and eerie place is no match for her extensive training.
The difference the dog makes is tremendous. Leaving your house in the morning to finding the gate to getting me on the train. If I was travelling without the dog, I'd be very, very, very restricted.
Today, Colin and Jumble are here to show the young team how it's done. 4 puppies in training, learning how to make a splash in the world along with their volunteer puppy raisers.
I raised Jumble's mum as well, so I always call Jumble my grandpuppy. They are puppies and we get them when they're about 8 weeks old, so when they come to us as a little bundle, of joy. It's lovely at that stage, but then it comes with all the toilet training, their sleepless nights and everything else.
All of these new pups are at a critical stage in their development where experiencing new sounds, sights and smells helps them build resilience and grow into the responsible guide dogs of the future that they are.
We do so much work with our dogs to ignore the amount of stimulus in the environment so that they can do their job. They can't be distracted by people and dogs and the cats, the pigeons. So just getting them used to being in these environments that are so different. Lighting, the noise, the smell of the otter, it's overpowering. You imagine how intense that is for our dogs.
Our hero of the day was April, our rescue sea turtle. She's an absolute superstar, a little bit of a diva at times, but she absolutely loved the puppies. You could really see her interact with the puppies and the puppies interact with her as well.
Honey, along with Winnie, Massey and Robin, will soon be learning the ropes with expert handlers. But there's a push for puppy raisers, so more young pups can one day follow in their paw steps. Caitlin Hutchison, STV News.
A lot of people wanted to do that report. That's it. Good night.